Welcome to the MCP Server Connector demo. In this demo, we will show you some of the capabilities of this new connector and how you can use it within the Boomi ecosystem. This demo assumes that you have a basic understanding of the MCP protocol and what it's used for. We also assume that you have an understanding of the Boomi integration platform and its ecosystem. In order to follow along with this demo, you should be familiar with runtime integration and Agent Studio. Lastly, you should have a fundamental understanding of the following concepts: AI agents, prompts, tools, and LLMs. Let's walk through some of the use cases. First, we will use an existing Boomi process that we will deploy as an MCP tool that can be leveraged by an agent to perform desired tasks. In our second use case, we will be building an agent in Boomi Agent Studio. This agent will help us with some of the tasks you normally do in a Shopify store, such as asking questions about inventory levels, creating a new customer, among others. Let's get started. To start, I've already logged into my Boomi account. I have a very simple process that makes a REST API call to the Shopify GraphQL API. Then it returns all the documents found by that query. In order to make this a tool for an AI agent to consume, the first thing I need to do is to switch my star shape to a connector shape. The connector I need to choose is the MCP server. And because our process is starting with a listen action, it is recommended that we disable capture, run dates, and allow simultaneous executions. The next thing we need to do is to define a connection. Remember that these connection fields are meant to configure your MCP server in your local runtime. As you can see in the example URL label, to connect to your deployed MCP server, the URL structure is localhost port 8000/MCP/ the name of the server that you have chosen / the server sent events. SE, the only protocol that we support right now for the tech preview version of the connector. And for the purposes of this demo, I am going to name it Shopify MCP. The next step is deciding what authentication type you want. You can choose none, or you can choose API token. You can generate a token outside the Boomi platform and keep them in a secure place. Once you have your token, just give it a name and enter your token. It is a good practice to encrypt your token after you have entered one. For now, I'm just going to leave the authentication type as none. The next thing we're going to do is to define prompts. Prompts are a way for us to start conversations with large language models, LLMs such as Claude or ChatGPT. This will make it easy for you to interact with the LLM, so let's create a couple of them. And that should be good. Let's save this. The next thing to do is define your operation. During the import, please remember to choose a local runtime. Optionally, you can provide a JSON schema, and this JSON schema will facilitate that the right information gets into your process. If you do not provide a schema, a JSON profile will be automatically created for you. For the purposes of this demo, I already have a JSON schema. This schema has just one field. This field represents the GraphQL query that I want to send to the Shopify API endpoint. You can make changes to your schema later on without the need to import again. I am very confident in my schema for this demo, so I am going to finish my import as you normally would for when developing Boomi processes. Next thing we need to do is define a name for our tool. We recommend the name to be something descriptive that can be associated with your tool, aka your Boomi process. The next step, and the most important one, is to provide a description for your tool. The description will be used by the AI agent to understand the purpose of this tool. The description of your tool must be as specific as possible so that there is no room for undesired outputs by the AI agent. Be as specific as you can. Let's click Save, and our MCP server tool is ready to be deployed. Once you have deployed your process to a local runtime, the next thing to do is to create an AI agent. In order to do that, I'm going to jump into Boomi Agent Garden. Click Source on the left-hand menu. Here you can see all the sources that can be used by your agents. In the Sources window, click on the Create New Source button. Here you can see the Model Context Protocol, MCP, on the Sources tab. Click on Add Source button. Next thing we need to do is provide a name and a description. As a reminder, the MCP server connector only supports SSE transfer type, and your Boomi runtime needs to be available and accessible from the internet in order for the agent to access the deployed process as a tool. Once all required information has been entered, you're ready to test the connection. To verify that the runtime endpoint is up and running and accessible from the internet, click on the Test Connection button. After a successful connection test, click Continue. The next step will give you a list of tools, which are the processes that we deployed to our local runtime and are now discovered by Agent Studio. In this list, you can see the GraphQL query tool. Let's click Continue to finish creating our source. Before we continue, let's take a moment to review the configuration of our source. To create an agent, let's go on the left side menu, then click on Agents, then click on the Create New Agent button. The best way to quickly get started is to use the Built with AI option in the Get Started with Your Agent window. We need to provide a goal for our agent. For the purposes of this demo, we are creating an agent that will provide customers with comprehensive information about products on the Shopify store. Once you have defined your agent goal, click on the Start Building button and Agent Studio will start creating your agent. Once Agent Studio is done creating your agent, you can review the details and edit as necessary. You can review and edit agent settings such as personality, voice, and conversation starters. For the purposes of this demo, we are going to leave everything as default. In the next section, you edit the tasks that your agent will perform. Each task within the agent can use one or many tools to accomplish the task. Tools are represented by the processes you have deployed to your local runtime. To add a tool to a task, click the Add New Tool button on the Tools tab. Find and select the tool you want to add from the list. For this demo, we are looking for the Shopify Query tool. I'm going to follow the same steps for the rest of my tasks. Then we can click the Save and Continue button. Guardrails are a way for your agent to stay within the goal, prevent harmful output, and protect data privacy. For the purposes of this demo, we are leaving everything as default. Click on Save and Continue button. In the last section, we can review all the information and configuration for our agent. And after our review, we are ready to deploy our new agent and Agent Studio. Once our agent is deployed, a good way to test it is by clicking on the menu under the Actions column in the main window, then clicking on the Start Conversation option. Since this agent's goal is to help us with our Shopify store, we can ask things like, what is the stock level for the Owen snowboard? Once the agent has provided the output, let's verify that information in the Shopify store inventory. We can validate our agent output by confirming that the Owen snowboard has 4 units in stock. Thank you for watching.